Everybody's got a price, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a pod, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price.
What's up, everybody? It's Marcus D'Angelo, and we are back for another episode of Everybody's Got a Pod. And, of course, we could never do this without the man himself, Hall of Famer, the $1 million man, Ted DiBiase. Ted, what's going on?
Hey, Marcus, it's all you, buddy. I mean, I'm doing okay. My wife and I are, we're kind of helping at taking care of my mother-in-law, who lives about, from here is probably about 50 miles. It's 10 miles into Jackson and then 40 miles down to a place called Crystal Springs. And she lives out in the country there. She's about 85 years old now. And pretty soon, within a day or two, we're probably going to be moving her into a, nursing home. So,
anyway, never an easy choice to make, but good on you guys for taking it really seriously and getting her the help that she needs in her older age.
Yeah. So that's what I've been up to. How about you, man?
Oh man, I'm still training with International Wrestling Cartel here in Pittsburgh, so I'm doing that, keeping busy with podcasting, social media. Man, there's my wife gives me a hard time. She says, "Boy, you've got a lot of plates spinning," and I'm like, "With that on top of having 2 kids, life's been a little chaotic." But I wouldn't have it any other way. Things are going great. And hey, look, before we start to talk about this, I did want to mention that you are going to be at Sarge and Reds on June 2nd here coming up. Man, I'm sure that your fans in Michigan are pumped up to have you out there.
That's right. Utica, Michigan, man. How far is that from you?
I'm in Pittsburgh, so that would be a bit of a hike.
Oh, yeah. But, okay. I have no idea.
Man, one of these days, you're going to come close to me or I'm going to come close to you, and we're going to have a hell of a time. Maybe we can even do a podcast in person, but we'll make it work one of these days. And look, folks, if you can't make it work to get out to see Ted, the next best thing that you can go and do is get a cameo from him, cameo.com/@MDM. And look, we've actually got a review here that you recently sent me from your cameo that I know that you were really blown away by. I'm going to read it here on the air so that folks can have a listen.
Yeah.
It says, and I'm going to keep it anonymous. It says, "I asked for a video back in 2020 from you because I was at a low point. I was questioning my faith, my fitness, and my general abilities to pick up and move forward. Your video helped motivate me and kept me going through a very difficult time in light of COVID isolation. Since then, I'm physically and mentally better than I've ever been. I got a great new job, and I met someone who I am marrying in about 2 weeks. I cannot find enough words to thank you, but I wanted you to know that you made a difference. I survived that time in part because of your positivity. I hope one day I can thank you in person." Man, Ted, it's got to feel great to connect with your fans. That's what
it's all about right there. That's what it's all about, and I thank God for it every day.
Well, I'm thankful to have you here on the show today, and I know that our listeners are going to be thankful because today we're doing our 13th edition of Ask Ted Anything, and as always, we ended up with a ton of great questions. I want to remind folks that if they have a question, you can get it on the show by posting it to Ted's social media, or the easiest route might be to send me the question in my DMs on Twitter, and you can do that right now at Marcus P. D'Angelo. As always, we'll continue to build these questions up and roll the ones over that we miss. So if you don't hear yours on this episode, it might just be on the next one. But look, before we get into these great listener questions, you guys know the deal. I wanted to remind our listeners to get over to our YouTube channel and get subscribed. Ted DiBiase and Jim Duggan share the channel. So that's 2 podcasts, tons of clips, videos of Jim's day-to-day activities and travels, and YouTube exclusive clips from this podcast with stories you can only get on our channel. All of that, plus we do giveaways sometimes. So if you're not a part of this, you are missing out. It only takes a second. Get over there and get subscribed right now. It's youtube.com/@everybody's got a pod. So, Ted, we're going to open up with a question from me this week. as I've mentioned, and I mentioned at the top of the show here, I'm training with International Wrestling Cartel here in Pittsburgh. And by the way, they've got a big show coming up. And if you're in the Pittsburgh or surrounding areas, Plumber Slam takes place on June 22nd, and the card is absolutely loaded with talent. So check out the description of this podcast for a ticket link. But anyways, one of the things that we were discussing was when it's appropriate to give a receipt in professional wrestling. Now, Ted, would you say that you would verbally tell someone to ease up in the ring, or would you send a message by simply hitting them with a live round?
No, I mean, it's kind of like, it's inevitable that you're going to get hit at some point. And, and I would think that if it was an intentional hit, that you would know it immediately. But, like if it's an accident or what have you, usually it's like, and I would, and again, if you throw a potato, then they say expect a receipt. Well, the only time I would ever throw a genuine receipt would be as if I thought that it wasn't an accident or it was just carelessness.
So if the guy's out there being reckless and hits you with a stick shot,
in other words, if he's doing stuff that it's like because the first rule of wrestling in reality is my first concern is your body. I'm supposed to do everything I can to make sure you don't get hurt, and he's supposed to do everything he can to make sure I don't get hurt. And that's old school. And you do your best to do it in the context of what you're doing. Obviously, if you were to, I don't know, there's a lot of things, but if you were just careless, about what you did, and it was obvious that you were careless, then that would be worthy of a receipt. So.
I guess one of the things that I would have a hard time with is I know that like guys take liberties in different ways in the ring, right? So like some guys might throw a stiff shot at you. Some guys will get you in the corner and start hitting you with chops kind of relentlessly. And it's like, one of the things that I'm as I learn, it's like, okay, at what point do I say like, okay, that was intentional, or like, okay, this guy's going a little bit too far with these chops. You know what I mean? It's hard to find that line where it's like, hey, I don't want to blast this guy if he's just trying to work, but he's being an idiot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and an open hand chop to the chest. I mean, it's kind of like, I used to do it all. And Flair. That's one of the things Flair would do. He would hit you with a big chop and woo, and then, I would poke him in the eyes and turn him around, put him in the corner and hit him with a big one, something like that. But, I mean, I'll be honest with you, a flat open hand chop to the chest up in here. I mean, it's going to sting, but it shouldn't, in other words, it shouldn't feel like it was a punch.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
So if it's like thudding against your chest, then you're like, okay, this guy's bringing it a little too hard.
Yeah. So.
All right. Interesting. It's like some of these minor details as I'm going through the training, I'm just like, I don't know, like, I'm not afraid to throw a receipt at a guy if I think he's taking liberties, but I don't want to do it. Then the guy's like, ow, man, like I was just trying to work, So, I guess it's one of those things you just kind of feel out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the first question we got this week is from Pete Holm, I think is how you say it. He says, hi, Mr. DiBiase. I couldn't make it to Newcastle to the Comic-Con. Did you enjoy the UK? And are you planning any future trips to UK Comic-Cons?
Well, I'm sorry you couldn't make it, buddy. And yeah, I had a great time at the Comic-Con. And, right now, I don't think I have anything. I don't think I have anything on my calendar going back to Europe anytime soon. So, but I mean, inevitably, God willing, and I'm still alive, eventually I'll probably make another trip across the pond, hopefully.
Ted, have you always enjoyed going over to the UK and kind of seeing the sights, or was it all business anytime you go over there?
Oh yeah. I mean, I liked going over there. I mean, the fans are great, and the it's kind of like I there's a one of the company's name I think is called Monopoly,
Hmm.
and those are the guys that have booked me. I mean, they had me in I think Liverpool one time, and I can't remember the other place, but good guys. Good guys, and you make your deal ahead of time, and you do what you do. So yeah, I guess the only time I wouldn't want to go to England, I guess, or the UK in general would be winter. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I've heard it can get a little bit nasty over there. And by the way, speaking of the UK and you being over there, there's some fantastic photos out there, and I think they were in WWF magazine back in the day of you and Sherry Martel in Ireland. And it's got just great photos of you two kind of
yeah,
walking the streets, surrounded by fans, stuff like that. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool to see, you across the pond and in Europe in general, just doing your thing and living the gimmick back in those days, right?
yeah, yeah. And actually there's a guy who I met over there, and he's a really good, nice guy. I mean, it's kind of like I'm trying to let me go over here. Yeah, the guy's name. His first name is Alan. I won't say his last name, but he told me. He said Ted. He says when you were over here, and I really can't remember exactly what I did for him. That or I stuck up for him or whatever. But what he said, he contacted me and he said, "Look," he says, "I want to thank you again, because at a time when I was at that jam, you stuck up for me, and it had to do with the wrestling business, must have." And he says, "But I just wanted you to know that I am doing very well now." And he says, as a result of that, he says, "I would like to invite you and your girlfriend, or if you're married, your wife, to come to Ireland on my dime and spend a week here, and we'll take you everywhere, show you everything you need or want to see." And Melanie and I are going to do that. Isn't that great? That's just awesome.
Amazing, man.
Yeah, the guy's name is Alan, and we are going to we're going to go over there, and I guess it's like probably fly on a Monday, and then October the 8th is a Tuesday. Probably arrive, and then we're gonna go through August the 5th, October. I'm sorry, October the 15th, October 8th to October 15th. And then come home, and uh, I guess he said one of the places he says I hope you're going to really enjoy is it's the Guinness brewery.
Oh man. All right.
Where they make Guinness, the beer.
You're gonna have to throw any diet you might be on right out the window, buddy.
Yeah.
Guinness is worth it.
Well, and I told him, I said, "Look," I said, "I appreciate that, and yeah, I like to have a beer or two every now and then." I said, "But I'm not, and I never was oh my gosh, like my old friend Dick Murdoch. I mean, he didn't go anywhere without a case of beer, and he had the belly to prove it."
Now, are you a Guinness fan or just?
Oh, I like Guinness. Yeah, I do.
Man, that beer is hard to beat. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's a good, if it's hot and, sticky outside. I don't know if a Guinness is the right choice. But, man, you're sitting in your house on, like, a winter day and a big, thick Guinness. Come on. Nothing better. Next up, we've got Graham Milano, who asks, if you could have picked a different bodyguard for your character, who would you have picked? So we'll set Virgil aside if you couldn't do Virgil, but you can pick somebody else from that era. Is there anybody that stood out as a guy you might want to have on your side?
Not really. I mean, I'm trying to think of think of the guys that were in a manager role. I mean, name some of them for me. I don't even.
Well, it's I don't even know if it would have to be necessarily like a manager. Like the first person that came to mind for me was Haku. Like how cool would it have been to have him in like a tuxedo and all of a sudden he's one of your guys and you can send him out to eat people alive.
Oh well, yeah, but I mean, you would never see him in a manager role anyway. I mean, look at the guy.
Right.
It's kind of like I don't know. I just don't think that would ever be the case. And I don't know. I really don't know. It's kind of like
I guess you with Bobby Heenan probably could have been a lot of fun.
yeah, Bobby Heenan would have been a good one. I mean, Bobby was great. I mean, he was. Oh my gosh, he was funny on TV, and he was even funnier off of TV. But a real good guy. But yeah, Bobby Heenan would be a good choice.
Just like a really quick-witted guy. But I'm looking back at this question from Graham, and it was actually a different bodyguard. So not necessarily a manager. This has got to be like a tough guy. So I don't know. Maybe Haku would have been a better choice.
Yeah, maybe.
Toby Clark is up next. He asks, did you ever think that you're not buying that because it's too expensive? And what was it? So was there ever any he's asking this question like you're actually the $1 million man. Like, oh well, I'm not going to buy that despite all my millions. So let me ask this question a different way. Ted, when you started making really good money in wrestling, what was a big ticket item that you purchased for yourself?
Oh my gosh. Well, my wife and I have lived here in Mississippi like for 43 years now. And our first home was in a nice little neighborhood, and in a suburb of Jackson, Mississippi. And then it's kind of like, then we went to another one, another home in another neighborhood. It's almost like the progression. And I guess, once I became the $1 million man, the third home that we bought or not bought, built, was probably one of the, because now I'm the $1 million man, and this is in a very nice neighborhood. It was a 2-story. Oh my gosh, I don't know what, I can't remember the footage, but the master bedroom was downstairs, four bedrooms and a game room upstairs.
All right.
And my office was just off the front door on the right when you come in the house. And it was, and, a pretty fair sized swimming pool in the backyard.
Man, getting to live like the $1 million man a little bit, but it's got to be weird as a wrestler when you buy a home and it's like, okay, we did it, we bought our dream home. Anyways, I'll see you in 2 months or whatever because you're back on the road again. Yeah, so it's got to be hard for you.
Yeah, and again, a lot of those things, I wanted to make sure that my wife was not only comfortable, but it was in a nice, safe neighborhood. No trouble, and it was kind of like, when you turn into this neighborhood, it's like this, maybe I'd say a quarter of a mile from the highway. And when you get back there and you make the first turn into the neighborhood, that first long, it's just like a quarter of a mile. So, and then you're in this really nice neighborhood with big houses everywhere. So,
man. Good spot.
Wanted to make sure that Mama was taken care of well.
Now, speaking of you being on the road, not really kind of getting to enjoy the fruits of your labor all the time, just because it was work back in those days. Like, how difficult was it for you? You had some young kids. Like, how difficult was it for you to, say, well, sorry guys, I have to go to the airport, because kids are inevitably going to ask, like, hey, when are you going to be home again? And you say, like, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks,
Yeah, well, that was hard. I mean, and I can tell you that, but my commitment to my boys, I mean, I can remember when they started, my boys got into soccer, and then later, I think Teddy played quarterback on the football team for a little while, but their big sport was soccer. And I don't know, just the Clinton community is like, uh, you would think, okay, football, basketball, baseball, but soccer. But Clinton, Mississippi is known for its soccer teams, and so my boys played soccer. And I can remember, I can remember flying home from Los Angeles on a red eye. Left LA at midnight and flew to Atlanta. Got off one plane and then flew back to Jackson because you're coming from the West Coast. You fly right over Mississippi to Atlanta and then fly back. And I would get home like maybe 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm wiped out. But if they had a soccer game or any game, I was there. I mean, I would get in my car instead of driving home and going to sleep. I went straight to the soccer game. So I wanted my boys to know that whenever I could be there, I was going to be there.
Man,
And,
good for you.
And I think I did a pretty good job. So,
Man, incredible sacrifices as a parent, and yeah, good to hear, because I'm sure that not a lot of guys felt the same way. They just want to get home and rest for a day or two before they got to get back out on the road. But man, putting the effort in despite not being able to be home all the time, that's what being a dad is, man. Good for you.
yeah.
RMT781 asks, I don't even know if you're going to have an answer for this. What's the setup like under the ring for guys that come out from under it for spots, and how long do they stay down there? I'm always amazed to see 6'10" Undertaker emerge at the end of a 3-hour show. Is he laying on a mattress down there or sitting on a chair the whole time?
That's a good question. I don't think anybody's ever been under. Well, I mean, there might have been an off occasion where somebody's going to sit under there, but have some kind of communication with somebody in the back as to know what was going on and when it was going on. But that's a good question. And a lot of times with the managers or something, they'd walk out to the ring with their guy, and just duck under there. And all the fans would be screaming, "He's under the ring! He's under the ring! He's under the ring!" And the referee obviously, would look at them like they were crazy, and then whoever that manager was representing would be in the ring and say, "Look, he's not here. He's just, he's sick or something." And then at the right moment during the match, he comes out from under the ring and does what he's going to do.
I love that idea. That's kind of an old school thing that I haven't seen in many years. I'd love to see something like that happen in modern wrestling. I want to say that I've heard that there's a monitor under the ring, but I've never heard of what the setup might be like, because it's a good point. Like, is this guy just laying on? Because you can't sit up. You couldn't be in a chair. So it's like, is this guy just laying on the floor?
Yeah, I mean, there's some. It's like when you walk up to the ring. I mean, when I walk up to the ring, I mean, I'm, from the floor to where the mat is, it's this high.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you got four or 5 steps up there. So, you're not, when you're under that ring, it's not like you're, in a house in the crawl space. You got a little room under there to move around. And I can't recall ever anybody, whether they did or not, I don't know, but actually to have a monitor that they're watching. I would say that what they had was probably like a walkie-talkie or something, some way that they could, there was some way that they could be cued to do what they're going to do.
Man, it's an interesting business if you've got to lay there for 3 hours and wait for your turn to come out.
And even to the point where, like, for example, if the manager's, the guy that he's managing, gets hit and goes out on the floor or something, and he somehow manages to misstep or something, and and fall down and just kind of casually rolls, not all the way under, but just rolls under, head high, and just says, "Okay, it's coming," or whatever the signal was. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, there's got to be some way to get the
Yeah.
communication through. And who knows? I know that like referees nowadays wear earpieces, so there's probably a safe chance that the wrestlers today have got an earpiece while they're down there and they just listen. But yeah, I don't know. It's more than anything, I'm interested in like what is it? What do you even do down there? You just got to lay there and wait. It's
Yeah.
it would be a bummer. Ed Trask is up next. Hey Ted, always wondered what you guys called each other in the locker room. Do you use the character name or your real name? Was there etiquette as far as how new guys address the veterans?
No, we just called each other by name. I mean, and there was no. I mean, it wasn't like anything military or whatever. I just know this, that at least when I was there, kind of like the old school way. If you're a rookie, if you're the new kid on the block, so to speak, it's basically yes sir or no sir, and then that's the other thing that young guys needed to learn is that whether they realize it or not, everybody's watching them,
Mm-hmm.
and see to see what he's made of. And and how is he gonna? It's kind of like if you're the new guy on the block, you don't want to come in there and and take somebody's locker room space or whatever. It's like we'd go to a lot of weeklies towns, right? And everybody seemed to have their spot. Not all the time, but And the one thing you dang sure wouldn't want to do is move somebody's stuff. If you were young and you're just starting, then you find a corner, get dressed, and don't speak unless you're spoken to. That's at the very beginning. That's just kind of like getting broken in, and and then guys would watch you and say, okay, now he was on the first match. Now, did he just get dressed and leave, or did he get dressed and go out and watch the other matches?
Mm.
Because if they know that you got dressed and you went and you watched the other matches, that you're actually trying to learn your trade, that you're not just like anxious to get on, to get in there and get out of there because you're on the first match and make it to the bar before everybody.
Right. Man, it's interesting, all the etiquette stuff, and that's another thing I'm kind of learning as I go here. When it comes to handshakes, I know that handshakes are a big thing in wrestling, and like, especially if you're a new guy in the territory, you want to come in and shake everybody's hand and introduce yourself, and
Yeah.
it's a sign of respect. At what point does that stop for you? So if you come to a new territory, you want to come up and introduce yourself to everybody. Is that every show, or is that just the first time you walk in the building?
I would say the first time, that you get there, you introduce yourself and everything, and then it's just kind of an informal thing, and you don't have to do it every time. It's not like it's not like the military. It's
Right.
not, and so no, it's not that bad.
Something else that fascinates me is the idea that somebody like you, Ted, by the time you got to Georgia, you had been working for quite a while and you were what everybody would consider a ring veteran, but you're coming to a new territory. And let's say your second Georgia run, so 1983, you're coming from Mid-South. Now you're coming back to Georgia after being away for a while. For you, coming back in the door, you're an established ring veteran, but you're coming into a new territory. Do you defer to your opponent when it comes to calling the match, or how does that go?
No. I mean, if I'm a veteran and I've been in the business for I don't care how many. I mean, generally speaking, the old school was the heel called the match.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I'm in the ring with a guy that's still a little wet behind the ears, and he's the heel, he ain't calling my match.
Okay.
I'll be calling the match that way. I mean, and that's just respect, for a much more established guy. So,
Now, were you like a see you in the ring kind of guy, or would you go over a few spots ahead of time and learn what the guy could do?
uh, I was pretty much see in the ring, but if I had a history with a guy, in other words, if it's the first time I'm ever wrestling the guy, I would sit down and first of all kind of put him at ease, if he was, nervous or whatever. And, and I would just tell him, I'd say, kid, just listen to me out there. And, and because that's when I was the kid, that's what all the old timers said to me hey, just kid, just listen to me out there and we'll be okay. And, that's pretty much it.
I'm sure I'm gonna have more questions like that, certainly from our listeners, but also for me as we go. Just because it's like, for me right now, it's drinking water from a fire hose as I learn all this stuff. So I'm just trying to absorb as much as I possibly can. So yeah, it's those kind of small nuanced things are what get down.
But the other thing, Marcus, is I feel like the business has changed so much. I mean, we're talking old school. We're talking back before the big. Before Vince McMahon went national and international. And I'm talking about like, in the late 60s and the early 70s. Again, that respect was always there. I mean, and expected. And as time has gone on, not so much. I mean, you might introduce yourself to somebody you don't know. I would say that, it's like if I go in a dressing room and I'm a veteran and I sit down, it's like, and there's a new guy in there, I'm not going to go over there to him. I'm going to wait for him to come to me.
Yes.
That's just etiquette. That's just, old school.
And if the guy doesn't come to you, does he have heat with you right away?
Nah, I wouldn't say heat, but and of course, because a lot of times brand new guys, they're just nervous as hell in that dressing room, and I understand that. And I was never really that nervous. Number one, because I was raised in the business. Yeah. I knew a lot of those guys, when I first started, that were veterans that were in that dressing room. And the other thing is that I always showed them respect. I mean, that was just me.
Interesting subject. I'm sure we'll touch on it more as the show goes on. James F. is up next. What did you think of Rick Rude? Did you have any interactions with him?
I never got to know Rick real, I mean, like we were never bosom buddies. We didn't, like we didn't, call each other or whatever. But I mean, as business goes, and we're on the road together, and we're staying in the same hotels and stuff like that. And then I'd see him at the show, and then I would see him again, at the hotel bar or whatever. Not a bad guy, I had no issues with him.
I've heard he was tough as nails kind of dude, not a man that you'd want to get on the wrong side of, but like generally speaking, just like a good guy. And man, and next to you, I think an argument could be made that he's one of the better heels ever in the WWF, because he's much like yourself. He was never a baby face there. He was always a heel.
Yeah.
Kevin Dobson is up next. What is your favorite interview that you ever did? So a lot of people have like a signature interview. Ted, do you feel like you have one that really kind of identifies you?
No. I mean, I couldn't. I did so many interviews. I mean, I did interviews when I was wrestling. I did a lot of the talking when I was out of the ring, and a manager. Because the manager is usually the guy that speaks for his protege. Mm-hmm. And then I even did a few interviews, like like the last interviews I did were at NXT. So yeah, that's just impossible. I mean, it's kind of like it was like you go to work every day, okay, and there's things about your job that are always the same, and I think for most people, there's things that are always changing. And again, with that, with interviews and stuff like that, we'll say, okay, I'm 70 years old now, and I stopped physically wrestling when I was 40, and I wrestled from the age of 21 until I was, I think, until I was 40, just about to turn 40, and that's when I started doing the managing and what have you, and they go and pick out an interview. No.
Just for fan perspective, because a lot of people are like, "What was on TV?" Like it lives forever. You should remember this. It's like if let's say that you're a warehouse worker and somebody came up to you and said, "Hey, what do you think is the best truck that you unloaded?" You'd be like,
Oh yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of like that. It's a thing that you did every day when you went to work. You're cutting a promo. All that being said, for me, it's probably if I had to pick like a signature kind of an interview that you did, probably the basketball moment, which you and I have talked about here on the show. That's one that gets brought up a lot.
Well, okay, now that's not an interview so much as that's
segment.
When you say interview, to me, it's either Gene Okerlund is there, whoever has got the microphone. Puts the microphone in front of me, or I'm holding the microphone, and I'm cutting an interview about my opponent.
Gotcha.
That's what I call an interview. Now, the of all the skits that we did, with the $1 Million Man, me and the kid with the basketball is the one everybody remembers.
Yep.
And I don't know, do we need to run through that again? So whoever's listening that doesn't know.
Well, look, it's actually pinned on our YouTube page. You get the full story about that interview. So go to our YouTube page, youtube.com/@everybody's-got-a-pod. Go and click that clip, and you'll get the full story from Ted on that interview. And yeah, really, it's like a lot of your moments were more like the vignettes that you did. You with the $1 Million belt, and you going to the hospital to get a Band-Aid.
Oh, yeah. And all of those were done at the beginning. All of those vignettes were seen before the first time I walked out of a dressing room into the arena with, wearing tights and boots and going to a match. They already hated me. They put me out of the building because that's all they had seen is me and kicking the basketball with the kid, me kicking the honeymoon couple out of their suite. I can't remember. Oh, and going to the doctor with a paper cut.
In the swimming pool, and there's
kicking all the kids out of the swimming. So that's I did enough for the people to hate me before they ever saw me.
And it's something that's really missing in wrestling today is vignettes.
Yeah.
I think that management thinks like, well, the internet is around, so fans are already familiar with these wrestlers. It's like they're familiar with maybe the work that they did in New Japan or in AEW, but when they come to WWE and you're trying to introduce us to a new character, you should really build that character up and kind of let us get to know who they are.
Yeah, I agree.
Chris Davies asks, you had a reputation as one of the best technical wrestlers of your era. Who, in your opinion, was the best technical wrestler that you ever worked with?
Ricky Steamboat.
I had a feeling it was going to be
and I only had one match with him.
Wow.
But that one match set up a whole hell of a lot, man. I was so impressed with him. And again, we tore the house down, and we had never had a match ever anywhere. And I guess maybe one of the other guys that I could put on there would be, Ric Flair. Rick and I had a lot of matches, but when you were the world champion, as he ended up being, you were, you were wrestling every night. And this is the territory days. So he would go to the territory, and the world champion was always a heel unless he was in his home territory. Rick's home territory was Charlotte, North Carolina. Now I'm not even sure that he was a babyface there. But everywhere else, the champion would go, and obviously, who do you want the world champion to face but your number one babyface?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why in the territory days, the champion was always a heel. And of course, as champion, you're the guy in controlling that match and calling everything.
Man, it's got to be interesting for a guy like Ric Flair with all of his experience, because in some of these territories, you're going to go work with a Ted DiBiase, or you're going to work with a Jake Roberts, or somebody who's on the same level as you are when it comes to experience.
And that's true, but by the same token, and again, I wrestled Rick when he was champion. I'm trying to think. It was a couple times. I can't remember where, but I was perfectly capable. But I mean, he's the champ, and so we bow to the champ. We do it his way, and so that's the other thing about being the champ. It's like you're going to have to be able to work with anybody. And you're gonna show up sometimes, and whoever that opponent is not as good as you would like him to be. Well, you got to help elevate him. Anyway, it's another message for another time.
That's it, though. And yeah, it's like you might work with a Ted DiBiase going to one territory. You might just work with some guy who just happens to be the top draw in whatever small territory you're in, and you've got to work with this guy. So it's an interesting gig to be the champ. Taka Ozaka asks, what was Stan Hansen's reaction when you told him you were leaving All Japan for the WWF? So you've mentioned before that Stan put you in the position of Bruiser Brody, so he thought very highly of you, and you guys are going like gangbusters over there. You're a great compliment to each other, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, Stan, I'm leaving. How did that go?
Well, Stan understood, and I told Stan, I said, like, this is great. I mean, it couldn't be better, and I appreciate you picking me to be your champ. I mean, your partner, But what I understood, and I wanted to make him understand, is that if I was going to stay relative in wrestling in my country, then I was going to have to make that move to the WWF. And that was the other thing, is that the Giant Baba, he understood. And he said, and I thanked him. I thanked him so much, because ultimately it was his decision to put me in a spot. And I was there couldn't have been, I was like, Stan Hansen was number one. I was number two.
Mm-hmm.
And we as a team were phenomenal. But Stan understood, and the Giant Baba, I mean, he paid me the last night of that last tour, and he said, Ted, you're welcome back anytime. And even to, like, if it doesn't go well for you there, just call us. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Great spot to be in. And yeah, it's, it would have been cool if Stan Hansen could have come to the WWF along with you, and who knows how that whole thing could have gone, but good that you had that experience, and you guys made, to your point, made a hell of a team. Trevor Gaines has got an interesting one, similar to something that actually Jake and I talked about on Ask Jake Anything not too long ago. If a babyface isn't getting over with a live crowd, are there any methods they can use to turn things around? So, Ted, a good example of this is whenever I spoke to Jake about it, WWE was pushing John Cena really strongly, but the crowd kept booing him because they had seen so much of him. But, he's one of their top draws for children there, so they continue to push him as a babyface. Can you think of a way that a babyface can get the crowd to react the way that they want to?
Yeah, that's hard. That's a hard one for me. I mean, it's kind of like, Now I've heard of the reverse. In other words, if you're a heel, but if you're okay, I'll give you an example. Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Mm-hmm.
When he started, he was a heel, right?
Yeah, the ringmaster.
He was a ringmaster, you know, and I guess I was his manager for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But he was legitimately a tough guy. And people like tough guys. I mean, you know, eventually a tough guy heel. You know, now I was the kind of heel you never, you know, you always wanted to see somebody kick my ass because I was what we called the chicken shit heel.
Mm-hmm.
I was the guy who talked real big and then cowered in the corner like, don't hurt me, you know. And so you never got tired of seeing him get his butt kicked. But if you were a tough guy heel, eventually the crowd's going to turn you. And that's what happened to Stone Cold, because people like tough guys.
You know, whenever I ask Jake the question about like if fans are booing you, how do you get them to stop booing you? Can you, as a ring veteran yourself, do you have any guess as to what Jake said about getting a crowd to stop booing you?
No.
He said, you do nothing. He said, you grab a hold and you lay in it until they stop. He was like, eventually they're going to stop and start cheering you because they want you to do something, because they paid for a ticket. He's like, all you have to do is grab a hold and wait, and they'll start cheering you on and trying to get you to stand back up. And I'm like, it's just funny, the Jake's little methods for getting things done out there.
Yeah, and you know, and I think he's right. Yeah, I probably would have, you know, and that's true.
One little trick to do it. I feel like it's a temporary fix, though. Like they'll cheer you to get back up, but then you know if they don't like you, they'll just start booing you again.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too. Sometimes, you know, if you get in a match and you know somebody's supposed to be the babyface, somebody's supposed to be the heel, and the crowd's just not taking it that way, you know, then just switch and be the heel.
Ah, okay.
You know.
So you're saying even if you're going to continue on as a babyface, just that night you work as a heel?
Well, I mean, yeah, if you're gonna, you know, I mean, I don't know. You would have to be a tough guy, though.
Right.
Yeah.
So so if you're a babyface and you're getting booed, you just start working heel, but you work like a tough guy heel.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't be a chicken shit heel. That won't work.
No.
Man, interesting little tricks there. Danny Kaiser, I guess is how you say it, asks, what was your all-time favorite WWF/WWE storyline you were involved in? I don't know if we've talked about that or not yet, Ted, but I have to imagine it's got to be that twin referee thing.
Wow. You know, that was one of my favorites because it was the storyline that set my rocket on fire. You know, now I'm the heel. I'm the guy. I don't know. I can't remember how long it lasted, but I know I had a little run with Jake.
Yes.
I loved working with Jake because, again, we both were products of wrestling. We both had fathers who had been in the business, and we had the same. We understood the same psychology, and I think that's why we worked so well together.
The other thing about you and Jake was it was a cool storyline where you guys were programmed in early 1989. Jake had to leave because he had a neck injury and had to go get surgery on it. When he comes back, he blamed his neck injury on you, saying that you hurt him.
Yeah.
And then it leads into him stealing the $1 million belt. And, you know, now he's got you saying he's going to make you grovel for the money that's your very own, that kind of thing. It was a really smartly done storyline, plus great work. And actually, we asked Jake on this past episode of Ask Jake Anything, Jake, what's your favorite WrestleMania match? He says, my favorite is probably me and Martel in the blindfold match, but the best match that I worked was with DiBiase.
Yeah. I agree.
It was a hell of a match, and this was a hell of an episode. That's going to wrap us up for today. We're going to be back next week as always with a new episode. But in the meantime, I want our listeners to make sure they follow Ted on all of his social media to keep up to date on what he's doing. You can follow him on all social media at MDM Ted DiBiase. And you can follow me again at Marcus P. D'Angelo. Feel free to DM me if you've got a question for Ted for an upcoming show. And man, that's going to wrap us up on another fun episode, my friend.
Well, that's awesome, Marcus. And I'm, yeah. Oh, some of you fans out there are going to take this and turn me heel. Some of you not going to like what I'm about to say, but go Donald Trump. They put you in jail illegally. It's a farce. It's as evident as the nose on my face. So go Donald Trump. Get Biden the hell out of the White House. He doesn't know where he's at half the time. I had to do it.
Man, it's
I am who I am.
That's right. Like it or not.
And one money man to another, right?
Hey, look, like it or not, no matter who you vote for, Ted is certainly entitled to his opinion just as you are. So, yeah, folks.
That's right.
Don't take it too personally.
You know what? We all have a right. We do have a right to vote. But I'm just going to have to let it go. And as always, remind you that everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man.
We'll see you guys next time right here on Everybody's Got a Pod.